I will confess. I took him. I left him in the forest to die. I did it for my son. I want my son to inherit this kingdom. Your enemy was not your wife alone. Elder Maduka is your biggest enemy. He is the one who ordered my death.
Inside a small mud hut at the edge of the village, a young woman named Ngozi took her final breath after giving birth to twin boys. Her husband, Chief Obiora, was the richest man in Umudara. He owned farmlands that stretched beyond the river. He had dozens of servants. Many wives had desired him, yet he had loved only Ngozi. As she lay dying, she held his hand. "Promise me," she whispered. Tears flooded the chief's eyes. "Anything." She looked toward the crying babies. "Protect them." Then she died. The chief screamed so loudly that people in neighboring compounds heard him. But grief has a way of opening the door for evil.
And evil entered the house before the burial ended. 6 months later, the elders pressured Chief Obiora to remarry. The children need a mother. The household needs a woman. The dead do not return. Eventually, he married Madame Izine. She was beautiful, soft-spoken, respectful, at least in the daylight. But beneath her smiles lived a hunger deeper than the river. Izine wanted power. She wanted her own child to inherit the chief's wealth. Yet the twin boys stood in her way. Especially the younger twin, a quiet boy named Kelechi. Because from the day he was born, strange things followed him. Birds rested on his windows. Snakes never harmed him. And the village priest once whispered, "This child carries the blessing of the ancestors." Izine heard those words, and fear entered her heart. Because fear often becomes cruelty. One night, when the twins were only 3 years old, she carried Kelechi into the forest. The moon hid behind clouds. Owls cried. She placed the sleeping child beside an ancient Iroko tree. "Forgive me," she whispered.
But her eyes showed no sorrow, only ambition. She returned home before dawn. When the family woke, she screamed, "Kelechi is gone!" The entire village searched. Men entered the forest. Women prayed. The chief nearly lost his mind. But the child had vanished. Days became months. Months became years. And eventually the village accepted a painful truth. Kelechi was dead. Only his brother, Chinedu, remained. But Kelechi had not died. An old widow named Mama Ada, who lived deep inside the forest, found him beside the Iroko tree. The old woman had no children, no husband, no family, only a tiny farm and a lonely hut. She raised the boy as her own. She never told him where he came from, because the night she found him, she had discovered something else. Around the child's neck hung a golden pendant bearing the symbol of Chief Obiora's family, and she feared that powerful people wanted him dead. So she kept the secret for 20 years. Meanwhile, inside the chief's compound, Izine finally had a son. His name was Ikem. She spoiled him, protected him, fed his pride.
And as Chief Obiora grew older and weaker, she began preparing Ikem to inherit everything. Chinedu, the surviving twin, became quiet and lonely. He always felt as though part of himself was missing. Sometimes he dreamed of another boy, a face identical to his own, a voice calling his name from the forest. He would wake, trembling, but nobody believed him. Even his father would say, "Grief creates strange dreams." Only Izine feared them, because secrets buried alive often begin to breathe. 20 years passed. Chief Obiora became sick. The village priest announced that before the chief died, an heir must be chosen. The entire kingdom gathered. Ikem stood proudly beside his mother. Chinedu stood alone. The drums beat. The priest raised the sacred staff.
Suddenly, a violent wind swept through the square. Dust filled the air. The sacred fire extinguished itself. People screamed.
and from the crowd emerged a young hunter, wearing worn clothes. His face was covered with dust. Beside him walked old Mama Ada. The old woman leaned on a stick. Her eyes were full of tears. The entire village became silent, because the hunter looked exactly like Chinedu. Exactly. As if one face had been split into two. Women dropped their baskets. Men stood frozen. Chief Obiora rose from his seat. His hands shook. No. The hunter spoke. My name is Kelechi. The chief nearly collapsed. Izine turned pale, and for the first time in 20 years, fear finally reached her heart. The old woman stepped forward. I found him beneath the sacred Iroko tree 20 years ago.
She removed the golden pendant. Gasps spread across the crowd. Everyone recognized it. It belonged to the chief's bloodline. Chief Obiora began to cry. My son. But before anyone could speak again, Ezine shouted. She lies. She pointed at the old woman. She wants wealth. She pointed at Kelechi. He is an imposter. The crowd became divided. Some believed her. Others did not. The priest stepped forward. There is one way. He pointed toward the ancient shrine. The ancestors never lie. Fear entered Ezine's eyes, because the shrine had exposed many secrets, and secrets fear the light. That night, the entire village gathered before the sacred shrine. The priest lit the ancestral flame. He placed both twins before it. He called upon the spirits. Nothing happened. Then suddenly, the flame turned blue. A terrifying wind filled the shrine. The drums outside began beating by themselves. Women screamed. The priest fell to his knees, and a voice echoed through the darkness. The abandoned son has returned.
Izine collapsed. Her body trembled. Her lips moved. And before the entire village, she began confessing. I took him. The crowd gasped. I left him in the forest. Chief Obiora screamed. Chinedu stood frozen. Kelechi remained silent. Tears rolled down Mama Ada's face. But Izine continued. I did it for my son. Suddenly, the shrine doors slammed shut. Darkness covered the room, and another voice spoke. A voice no one recognized. Cold, ancient, terrifying. One truth still remains hidden. Everyone froze. The blue flame grew larger, and within it appeared the shadow of a woman. Ngozi, the dead mother.
The spirit pointed toward Chief Obiora. The chief staggered backward. Confusion filled his eyes. Then the spirit spoke. Your enemy was never your wife alone. The village became silent. Even Ezine stopped crying. The spirit raised her hand and pointed at one of the village elders, an elder who had stood beside Chief Obiora for over 30 years, the chief's closest friend, the man everyone trusted. He slowly stepped backward. His face turned white, and the spirit uttered words that shook the entire kingdom. He is the one who ordered my death. The elder ran. The villagers screamed. The shrine doors burst open. The sacred flame exploded into darkness. And somewhere beyond the trees, a voice echoed. The truth has only begun.
Kelechi and Chinedu stood side by side. Their father trembled. Ezine wept. The villagers stared into the night. Because after 20 years, the greatest secret had finally awakened. And the man who murdered their mother had escaped into the forest, waiting, watching, and carrying a secret even more dangerous than death itself. Like, subscribe, and share for part 2.